Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank my supervisors, Mr. Yana, SPDM and Miss Inantia Rahmijati, MMPD, who has guided and helping me to complete my research paper. Before we move to the next slide, let me introduce myself. My name is Shavira Ariyani. I'm an English education student, 2018 English Education Study Program, Faculty of Language Education, IKIP Siliwangi. This video is requirement of my final project for Sarjana Pendidikan Degree English Education. So my final project is under the title Developing Word Chain Game to Teach Vocabulary at the 7th grade students of junior high school. In this research consists of 5 contents. The first one is background of the research. The second one is objectives of the research. The third one is methodology that consists of research design, subject of the research, and instruments. The fourth one is results, and the last one is conclusion. For the first one, I want to describe about background of the research. For the ideal condition, one of the most important things in learning a language is vocabulary, including learning English, because it can help students to communicate, and vocabulary also has an important role for students to master the 4 main language skills. Before mastering these 4 skills, mastering vocabulary is the first step in learning English. But for current condition, teaching English to 7th grade students is not effective yet. Most of the students have less vocabulary, so it makes students difficult in learning English. They have difficulty spelling, remembering the words, how to choose the correct words, and understanding the meanings. Based on those explanations, the researcher has a purpose to developing word chain game to teach vocabulary at the 7th grade students of junior high school. The researcher chose to develop word games because based on Ariyani et al. 2020, word games are great media for students to have interesting activity with words. Next slide is about objectives of the research. The first one is to know the process and result of developing word chain game to the 7th grade students of junior high school. The second one is to know the feasibility of developing word chain game to the 7th grade students of junior high school. The third one is to know the students' responses to the use word chain game in teaching vocabulary. And the last one is to find the obstacles that are found when developing word chain game. Next slide is about methodology. This research paper used research and development. According to Borg and Gall 2003, research and development in education is a process to develop and validate educational products. And the researcher adopted the steps from Borg and Gall that has been modified, which the researcher only used 6 steps. They are research and information collecting, planning, develop the preliminary form of a product, product revision, preliminary field testing, and main field testing. The subject of this research is the 7th grade students at one of junior high school. There are 32 students who participate in this research paper. And in preliminary field testing, there are 11 students, and for main field testing, there are 21 students. The instruments that used in this research are observation, validation sheet, questionnaire, and interview. The researcher did the observations while researchers are conducting the practical field experience activities, and this observation was carried out by a researcher aiming to find out what needs students need. The validation sheet is needed to measure the validity of the product that the researcher developed. And this validation sheet is filled out by 3 validators, which consist of supervisors and English teacher. The researcher used a questionnaire to obtain information from students, and it contains of 10 questions which were distributed to students. And also, the researcher used interview to obtain the information from students, and it contains of 5 questions which are distributed to 5 students. The next slide is result. The first one is the process and result of developing word chain game. The researcher used stage from Berg and Gall, which has been modified by a researcher for answering research question number 1. In research and information collecting, it conducted a need analysis of 7th grade students at one of junior high school. It found that students had difficulty with the vocabulary. This analysis is evidence when teachers and students have questions and answer sessions, as well as inactive students in learning activities in the class. In planning, the researcher planned to develop a product that accordance to need analysis. In develop preliminary form of a product, the researcher began to develop an initial product according to students' need. That is a word chain game using worksheet as tool, which consists of students' identity, teaching material, vocabularies, rules, and also the exercise. In product revision, the researcher made several revisions to the product by adding some exercises according to the direction of the supervisors. In preliminary field testing, the researcher conducted preliminary tests with the participants or 11 students, and also asked the students to fill out a learning questionnaire. And in main field testing, the researcher conducted main test with participants or 21 students, and also asked the students to fill out a learning questionnaires. The second one is feasibility of developing word chain game. The researcher used the validation sheet to measure the feasibility of a product, which is filled out by 3 validators. From first validator, obtain 82.5% data, which category is valid. From second validator, obtain 80% data, which category is valid. And from third validator, as English teacher, obtain 80% data, which category is valid. Based on the result, it can be concluded that the product that the researcher developed according to Arikunto 2006 was valid, which means it was feasible for use in learning process. The third one is students' responses to the use word chain game and teaching vocabulary. The researcher used questionnaires and interview to gain students' responses. From preliminary field testing, obtained 93.63% data, which category is valid. And from main field testing, obtained 94.86% data, which category is valid. And also, based on the results of the interview, it can be concluded that word chain game is fun game and it motivates students in learning English. There are also some benefits of using this game. The students could remember and get new words. The game also helps them to find the clue to tell any vocabularies. And also, students found it easier to learn vocabulary in classroom. The last one is the researchers' obstacles in developing word chain game. When developing word chain game, the researcher encountered several obstacles. They are the difficulty determining the design, difficulty finding references to be used as exercises, the difficulty finding reference images to use in exercises, and also the difficulty finding the right vocabulary when making exercises. The last contents of my presentation is conclusion. The first one is this research used research and development of Berg and Gall steps, which has been modified by a researcher. The steps are research and information collecting, planning, develop preliminary form of a product, product revision, preliminary field testing, and main field testing. Second one is the feasibility of the product that the researcher developed was measured by using a validation sheet which is filled out by 3 validators, and the results obtained are valid. The third one, the response of the students from the use of word chain game was very good. It could be seen from the results of the questionnaires and interviews. Students felt that using word chain games in the classroom was very helpful in increasing their new vocabulary and also motivating the students to learn English. The last one is in developing word chain, there are found obstacles. The obstacles are confusion about the product design, difficulty finding image references, and also difficulty finding the right vocabulary when making exercises. Thank you. I think that's all from my presentation. I do really apologize. I have a lot of mistaken and thank you for paying attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.